Hey guys, this is Saptarshi here and welcome to our YouTube channel. So today we are going to discuss another very important topic, optimizers for neural networks. So let's set the context very quickly. So this will be a typical neural network architecture. So you have the input layers, you have the hidden layers and you have the output layers. Okay, and there are some parameters theta which defines this deep neural net. Okay, so what are these theta? So individual weight and bias parameter of these layers actually constitutes of this theta, and you have the input vectors over here. Okay, so you have your x values over here and your y values are given. So y can be a categorical variable. If it is a classification problem, it can be a numerical variable. It is a regression problem. And then we look at something called as a loss function, which is a function of theta, the parameters of this neural net basically, and x, which is the input, and y. So basically, using this theta and x, you also find something called as y hat. This is your predicted value, and you always want this loss function to be as less as possible. So basically, then finding this parameter theta or finding this optimal neural network architecture can be thought as an optimization problem. Okay, so you essentially are trying to find the values of theta which minimizes, so value of theta which minimizes this loss function. And in that context, we are studying optimizers today. So one of the optimizers that you have seen plentifully is your gradient descent. So this has been used quite well in your machine learning algorithms. Okay, and coupled with this chain rules and back propagation, this can also be effectively used for your neural networks. All right, multi-layer perceptrons basically. All right, so let's revisit gradient descent really quickly. So here are the parameters. So let's assume right now you have only one parameter. So this is your weight, and here is your cost function. All right, and basically how this works is it follows a simple equation like this. Okay, so what is w new? W new is the new parameter value. So you learn this optimal value by iterations. Okay, so you take the value of the previous iteration, which is your w old. Okay, then you apply or you find out the derivative. Okay, derivative or the gradient. So that's where the name derives. Okay, the gradient. Okay, and then you also have something called as neta or learning rate. So we are not going to discuss a lot or focus a lot right now on this learning rate. We are focusing more on gradient today. All right, so this what it happens is that if you are somewhere here, maybe you have a weight value of 2. Okay, and if you calculate here, what you see is that if you increase your weight little bit, the j actually goes down, right, if you follow this curve. So basically this term, okay, so let me write the expanded form. So del w is the shortened form which actually represents del j del w, and you see that as you increase w little bit, nudge little bit, then j actually goes down. So this is a negative term. Okay, so w old was 2. Now if you have used a neta value of 0.01, okay, and if your del g comes to be something like minus 0.5, then actually your weight becomes 2 plus 0.05 or 2.05. So essentially you move in this direction. Okay, and if you are somewhere here, what happens? So maybe w old here is around 5. Okay, so w old is around 5 over here, and then if you see that if you increase the weight little bit, okay, if you increase the weight little bit, the cost actually goes up, right? So if you increase it, the cost goes up. So as a result, this is a positive quantity now. So again, if I have a slope of 0.5, then it will be 0.01 into 0.5. So we will be something around 4.95. Okay, So this simple equation, what it enables is that actually, based on where you are still headed to the optimal value. Okay. So when you are here, you are still proceeding to this optimal value direction, and even when you are here, you are still proceeding to this direction. Okay. So that's the beauty. Now, there are several options of calculating this del W. So one option is, let's say you have 1000 training observations and you calculate this, del J del W once for all these 1000 observations. Okay. So when you do that, you simply call it as gradient descent or batch gradient descent. Okay. So next option is something called as mini batch gradient descent. So you actually break them in different short batches, like 100 batches of tail, let's say. Okay. Or 100 groups of tail, let's say. So you now update or calculate this del W for this 100 batches. Okay. Not for the entire training observation. And on the other extreme, you have stochastic gradient descent. So here you actually calculate the derivative after each observation. Okay, so for each observation, you calculate this y dash and y and find the loss function, and you can calculate the derivative. So these are the different variants. Okay, so let's now generalize this loss function card that we saw. So that was for only one dimension. Now let's include two dimension. Okay, so we have two parameters now, x1 and x2. Okay, and this is nothing but your cost function. Okay, so this surface that you see is your cost function surface, and you can only represent it in 3D. Okay. So for ease of representation, you will see in literature something called as a contour plot, which is quite confusing at times, that how we can arrive from this to this. Okay. So basically, you will see that different circles over here. And these circles, okay, so basically, if x1 is 0 and x2 is minus 7.5, then actually the cost value is 8 over here. That's how you need to read. And there are several points. So, you have 5.40 over here and maybe something like minus 6.0. So, which also has a cost function of 8.0. Okay. So, the combinations of x1 and x2, which gives the same value of cost, they actually formed in the same circle. All right. So this is how you can represent, okay, contour like this plot with concentric circles in contour plot. Now let's try to analyze the behavior of gradient descent, stochastic gradient descent, and batch gradient descent with respect to this contour plot. All right. So gradient descent actually has quite a simple and stable journey, where maybe it will start from somewhere here and it can converge to the optimal value. All right. So you can understand that the inner circles have the lowest cost values. All right. Whereas if you look at stochastic gradient descent, it takes quite a zigzag path. So which you actually, as you are calculating gradient for each observation, okay, so that is not your actual gradient curve. Okay, so if it is for one observation, it can have a shape like this. Okay, so instead of going like this, you can start going like this. Once you have gone like this, then the curve that you have got maybe like this. So you have shifted like this. So as a result, the path that you get is called is quite a zigzag path. All right, and somewhere in between you have mini batch gradient descent, which is not as smooth as gradient descent, but quite smoother than stochastic gradient descent, right? So now one question that will come to your mind is that, all right, gradient descent looks so smooth, right? So why do we really need to study any other gradient descent method? So let us give one of the recent papers. So this is a 2018 paper, if you see, as a reference. Okay. So basically, only in very ideal life you get a shape like this. You can have a shape like this. Okay. and if you start a journey over here, you will end up here if you use gradient descent. Okay, so if you use the stochastic versions, there is a possibility that you will not get stuck here, because you are not actually calculating this gradient value, right? So you may have calculated like this and reached somewhere here, and as a result you have escaped that. Okay, so that's why you use SGD, and if you see the last line, okay, although being commonly viewed as a fast but not accurate version of gradient descent, it always finds better solution than gradient descent for modern neural networks. Okay, so this is something I want you to pay very very close attention. Okay, so you can understand that of course the calculation of gradient is much more faster for SGD, right? Because you don't want to take the entire training observation in memory and calculate the gradient. You can take only one observation and can get the gradient. Okay, and one of the thing is that SGD calculates noisy gradient, as I said, and this helps escape local minima and saddle points. Okay, all right. So now we are going to discuss something called as a momentum. Okay, so the concept is very simple. So basically, if you are descending a hill, right? So you are trying to go to the lowest point. Okay, so what gradient descent is telling is that it will depend on the slope that we have here. Okay, but let's say there is a person, okay, who is just simply walking very slowly over here, okay, and there is another person who is actually running down. Okay, so our gradient descent will actually not differentiate them. Okay, because it doesn't consider that what speed it has reached there. Okay, so basically if we try to tell in other words, it doesn't consider this speed, right? At what speed you are there. So momentum actually tries to bring in that flavor. Let's see that from a mathematical intuition now. Okay, so this was our gradient descent problem, and let's say we pick a reference point over here, and let's go back to our old equation, okay, where W nu is calculated from W old and this neta and this derivative. Okay, so let's do a quick calculation. Let's say the learning rate is 0.1, okay, and your gradient is 0.5. So the weight is now 2.05. Okay, so maybe you have proceeded something like here. So you are somewhere here. Okay, now when you are at 2.05, again you calculate the gradient. Now the gradient is 0.4. So already you are at 2.0.5, right? So you will use the same learning rate. So the next position will be 2.09. So that's what happens in a normal gradient descent. Okay, and you can understand that as you are actually ascending this slope, your gradients will be, become slower and slower, or smaller and smaller. So you will converge quite slowly. When actually you are very very close, so your gradient will be very very small. So your steps will also be very very small. So in momentum, there is a small change in the equation. So you introduce a term called as momentum, and it is calculated as beta into m minus neta into del w. So this is a new term that is coming in. Okay, so this is what we already had, and instead of actually using only this neta into del w, now beta into m is also coming into play. Okay, so let's look at the effect with the same example now. So initially, we start with n equal to 0. So in the first step, there will be no difference between your gradient descent and gradient descent with momentum. So you are still with 2 plus 0.1 into 0.5, so 2.05. Now the value of m is 0.05. Okay, and you are going to calculate now m as 0.05 into 0.9 plus 0.1 into 0.4. So this calculation is same, okay, but this is a term which is getting added. All right, so it becomes 0.135. So whereas, in gradient descent, we were at 2.09, here we will be at 2.135. Okay. So basically, we have moved closer to the optimum. All right. And, this has an effect of moving average. Okay. And not only moving average, it actually has a, effect of exponential moving average. So what we mean by that is that, basically, this will have, so the last gradient, you are actually giving a weight of 0.9 if you think in that manner, right? Then the previous term, what will happen is, if my previous gradient was maybe 0.06, okay, so this will be multiplied by 0.9 into 0.9. So the more recent the previous term is, higher is its weight. Okay, so that's how it will work, and actually it converges faster and also can come out of play too quickly. So sometimes what happens is, you have something like this, okay, that you have a flat portion like this, which is like a plateau. Okay, so gradient descent will very easily get stuck here, but your momentum can cross the plateau very easily. All right, so this is one of the benefits. Now let's see that how momentum can help stochastic gradient descent. Okay, so if you remember, we were talking that stochastic gradient descent is actually a little bit noisy. Okay, so if this is your original function and or original gradient, this blue is a noisy version of, or noisy reproduction of, this original function. Okay, and this may be coming from your stochastic gradient descent. So if you just apply this moving average technique, exponential moving average technique, then you will get a curve something like this. Okay, and you see it is much more smoother than what we had in this blue constellation of points. All right, so basically for SGD, momentum can denoise the gradients or smoothen the gradients quite a bit. All right, and it has different effects of this value of beta. All right, so if beta is 0.5, it is quite noisy. If it is beta 0.9, beta equal to 0.9, it has smoothened out quite a bit. If you have beta equal to 0.98, there is some kind of a phase shift that has happened. All right, so if you look at the algorithms, quite a lot of time, this beta value of 0.9 is used for this momentum parameter. Okay, so with smaller value of beta, the new sequence turn out to be fluctuating a lot because we are averaging over smaller number of examples, and actually this beta somehow tells you that how many components you are using. Okay, how many components you are using when you are calculating the average. Okay, and with bigger value of beta, we get much smoother curve, as we discussed. All right. Okay. And here is the weight of the previous term. So if you are using beta equal to 0.5, okay, what you see is that the weight falls quite flatly. So it only considers some of the previous terms. If you use beta equal to 0.9, it considers quite a lot of previous term. And if you use beta equal to 0.98, you see that it can move up to like 100 previous terms over here. Okay, and as a result, as we were discussing, that this if you consider this as your stochastic gradient descent, which is this zigzag way of reaching the optima, and if you apply momentum with it, this will become much more smooth. Okay, all right. Now there is yet another improvement on this momentum term, which is called as Néstor momentum. And you see, let's quickly go to the equation. So earlier what we were doing was we were calculating the gradient of W. So here what we are doing is, instead we are applying this momentum term already, okay, and then we are calculating the gradient over here. So the concept is simple, that maybe you are here and you are using a gradient of this place. However, if you calculate gradient of here, maybe this will give you a much more definite direction to the optimal value. Okay, so that is the idea. And let's understand this with the diagram. So in standard momentum, what happens is that these are vectors, right? So this was your gradient step. Okay, this is your momentum step, and your actual step, because of this vector composition, is something like this. Okay, so in normal gradient descent, you would have just gone like this. Applying momentum, you have taken actual step like this. So in Nestor momentum, what is done is that you first apply this momentum and you see that where you reach, and there you calculate the gradient. Okay, and then you actually combine the vectors, and as a result, your actual step will be something like this. And it is seen from practical illustrations that Nesterov accelerated gradient actually converges much faster. Okay, so we try to give you some good understanding of these optimizers. Okay, so if you have any questions, please give that in your comment section. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe, and we will be back with another optimizer session very shortly.